Going guys, so setting up a new lab slowly, got a new scope. What better way to get accustomed with it than poking around some boards, and decided to do a 3FO for the PU22 Plus. This is a PU23 power model. I've pulled off the reference clock for the original clock synthesizer and the original clock synthesizer. This is just obviously while I was mucking around getting it working, so it's a bit sloppy. But there's your SI5351 Adafruit clock board and just a cheap Arduino Nano clone. That's a 168P. And basically, you can get a DFO for these, but I mean they're overpriced, and it would be nice to make this into a custom PCB, design one up, buy all the parts you need, make it nice and neat so it fits onto the PlayStation really professionally, but it is a waste of money and it's expensive just like the DFO to do that. These are off-the-shelf parts, they're really cheap, so you can install them however you like if you can get it to fit, but I don't think there's any point trying to sort of commercialize a product like this. So off-the-shelf parts does the job. Now if you use a DFO on these, they only take care of the GPU frequency, so complete waste of money. If you're gonna do that, and I've argued a bit with people on forums about this, and trust me, they were wrong. I've fixed the customer's console. He was having issues with his scaler on NTSC games. He thought it was his mod chip. I told him I knew what it was. These are NTSC crystals. They're the big 5-volt ones, but they work perfectly at 3.3. There's no issues with them. So there's your NTSC GPU frequency there, and you can just hot glue or double-sided tape one down here, run it to power, run it to ground, run the clock out up to the corresponding NTSC pin. They're tied together, so you do need to cut a trace just to separate the power clock injection and the NTSC clock injection, but yeah, they come tied together. With this mod and the other one, there's no trace cutting or anything required. But yeah, if you just want to fix just the GPU frequency to get your timings correct for a scaler, you only need a crystal and to cut a trace and a few wires. This is actually doing the subcarrier, the GPU clock, and the CPU. The CPU's a tiny bit overclocked. It's not going to make a difference. It gets divided by 2 after it's fed into the CPU. So if you feed it 80, your CPU will run at 40. I'm talking like a few decimal places of difference, and all the other frequencies, I've uploaded it all so you can see the differences. They're pretty much spot on. They're on the GitHub. But yeah, this one doesn't have an in-game reset. It doesn't have SPI communication. It's just all automatic. You wire it in there and away you go. Another difference with this is just in the way it's been coded. Usually when you turn on your PlayStation, this PVM will actually pop up and tell you what is being fed into it. So these will actually start in like a 60 Hertz mode. And then there'll be a bit of a flicker, then you'll hear the audio kick in, and then it'll flick across to its PAL mode. I don't know how an NTSC console works. Might not happen for NTSC consoles because they're always in 60 Hertz modes, but on these PAL ones here, they start in NTSC, so you'll see it pop up there, and then it'll flick across again. Although it's not true NTSC, but yeah, they do start in 60 Hertz. So on this, there's a delay there. We'll just demo it. This is just my dev drive here, although the actual drive's changed a few times, just some extension cables and stuff. That one I made, that one's off the internet. Oops, I missed that. So yeah, turn this back on, and you'll notice there's no dramas at boot, just straight into your PAL. This is an NTSC game. See, I've just finished synthesizing all 6 clocks. Well, 5 or 4. They're the same CPU clock, and then bam, straight across to NTSC. This is using S-Video, so if the subcarrier was out, there would be color issues. But that's it, spot on. So that's just switched that there. At the moment, the way it's configured is clock 0 is your GPU frequency up to the 220 ohm resistor there, or you can use the pad of the old synthesizer. To be honest, I had a wire soldered onto it, and when I went to strip the other end, I pulled it a tiny bit and pulled the trace off. It doesn't really matter, you just tap it onto the back of that resistor. The CPU is actually clock 2, which is just that bottom leg there, and then the subcarrier there. So that's always going to be the same, 67 point whatever it is megahertz. But for the PAL and the NTSC switchover, that one changes and that one changes. All the information's on the GitHub. If you want a true dual region later model PlayStation FAT, it's there. Go for it. You know, I'm sure you could do it a lot neater than that. But yeah, I mean, I don't believe in the DFO for these later models when you can just use a crystal. I mean, I've released a few different versions of PS Crystal. I'm just going to call this PS Crystal 3FO, which is like dual frequency oscillator. This one's triple frequency oscillator. But yeah, these you'll get away with wiring these in and just either cutting traces or adding a switch, a manual switch, or using my PS Crystal, which uses controller combinations to switch between either two physical crystals or generate the two frequencies for the GPU out of the one pin. But yeah, this version's different. So yeah, this one's the 3FO, baby. But yeah, it's looking good. So check out the GitHub. That's about it. Cheers.